title For Her to Be Heard. For Her to Be Heard.
Mm-hmm.
The first sentence is just like, yeah.
Nice.
And I was describing this to a friend of mine. I was describing this particular piece to a friend of mine, and just the first sentence, and she's like, "Victor, stop it!" Like we started like tearing up
wow.
as we're just talking about it. And would you like to read it? How do you want to start? I don't know if you want to start with that
That's
one
fine.
or.
Yeah, I'm happy to read that one first, and then I'm probably going to change it up a little bit on you because I think I want to read one that's a little happier and a little like uplifting, you know, because I got a lot of deep ones or heavy ones, and so after this one I'll do one that's actually about my time in Utah, and I'll do that one later. But this one, to give it a little background, this was the first time I ever worked in a classroom. This was, I don't know how many years ago now. I think 3 years ago now. And it's just about one of my students. And, you know, it was hard for me to process all that I was experiencing because a lot of my students have been through some pain that I had never been through, you know, and had experienced things in their really young life that I had could never even imagine going through. You know, and so trying to mentor them and be a role model for them was difficult at times. And I think I wrote this piece just to try to deal with it. How do I start off? Just go, huh? Just start reading.
Just go. This will be, the title is?
The title is, man, what is the title? I said, so that she...
For Her?
Yeah, For Her. It's For Her to Find Her Voice, I believe is the name of it. All right. I kissed him while he was laying in his casket. I finished her sentence. Yeah, she let out softly as her eyes went empty and she fell back into her chair. It was sad. A 9-year-old girl. The image, the smell, the horror of her 21-year-old cousin bleeding to death in front of her on a dirty sidewalk from a gunshot wound to the head. Her young vocabulary does not know the words to describe what she witnessed. Those big things, you know, they go boom on his chest, then they count. Yeah, nothing. I want to say defibrillator, but it doesn't matter. I just nod as tears begin to flow towards my eyes, and I realize that the word doesn't matter. It's the sound she heard as they zapped his chest and his body thudded back to the ground. The frozen moment, witnessed through the blur of tears, as her cousin's life escaped. That is life lived, seeing life lost, that she doesn't need words for. But I try to teach her anyway, because the two of us are sitting outside the classroom together, reading a children's book called The Life of Cesar Chavez, when she begins to tell me about these tragedies that have plagued her young life. Every word matters in this session. When we first sat, I asked her if she wanted to get better at reading, and she quickly exclaimed, yes, I do, going on to explain that her mother hits her more when she doesn't read well. While we are reading, I make her write down all the words that she doesn't know, so she can spell them. And we talk about their meanings. This is one of those moments of divine curiosity, but two of the words that came up just minutes after sharing her story with me were violence and experience. How could I describe in my words, in that moment, the meaning of the word violence to this girl? Or to try to make her understand what it means to experience? Violence is like bad stuff, right? She questions me. Well, that's a start, I thought. See, she understands how violence feels, how violence takes away the people she loves. She understands the pain that comes from it, the fear that it gives birth to in her heart. She doesn't know how to name those bruises, what to call the blood she saw. She doesn't know what word represents all that horror she has lived. And maybe that's the way it should be. Maybe this vast array of experiences, of feelings, of tears, of lost hope, of hiding, is not meant to be summarized in one word in such a young mind. So what is the value of these words? of teaching her how to express her voice in such words, and somehow give her these tools in the form of words that she can use to convince her 17-year-old brother not to follow in the same bloody footsteps. Maybe these words can give her some hope so that she is no longer overwhelmed with that desperate feeling that her big brother may be taken away from her too, because he chose to live by the gun too. And her young voice had no power or influence over his decisions, just because she doesn't have powerful enough words within her to touch his heart and change his path. People often say that we should use our words as weapons, but isn't it just as important to use them to heal or to mend? Is this not the true gift of literacy? To empower, to allow children and people of all ages to finally break free of that poverty of wordlessness, so they can be gifted with the conviction that the world around them is not trapping and stagnant, but is always changing, and they can and should strive to transform it with their words, with their actions, their ideas, and their power. This is when my dear student will no longer feel like a victim of this life or an observer, but rather an important member of her family, of her classroom, of her community, because she has the words necessary for her to be heard.